he was warning about this in the 1990s. And, others of us warned about it. And not only did governments not listen, they actually made the situation worse. Let's look at the UK. Um, in the UK, we have a Conservative government about to leave office after 14 years. Going into office saying that immigration would become tens of thousands a year, each year, and hundreds of thousands, roughly back to 1990s immigration. And the Conservatives are going to leave office with net migration in the UK at almost 1 million a year. Why did these people not listen? Why did they never listen? Why did they never act on all of the warnings after warnings that people gave? So you ask, is it going to happen? Yes, if we continue like this. And if we continue in a situation where the political class both accelerates immigration massively, totally fails integration. I mean, good luck with that old idea. And then tells the general public, as they do, that it's all a conspiracy theory that the immigration is happening at this pace, and it's all a great replacement conspiracy theory. So what you see before your eyes is a conspiracy theory. But it'll happen if it goes on like that, for sure.
And we have so many in the West who have no regard for the West. They don't want to assimilate. They're not called on to assimilate. They have no respect for Western civilization and the values we have. And that was apparent in the streets of London last week as supporters of the Iranian regime clashed with anti-regime protesters. Douglas, the clash happened outside a venue where they were holding an event to mark the death of Ibrahim Raisi, the Iranian president who died in a helicopter crash. Why is anyone who supports the brutal Islamist Iranian regime living in the UK? That to me is incredible. There are so many in the Middle East who would give their right arm to have the freedoms that we enjoy, and yet we have people accepted in as migrants, as residents, as citizens who obviously do not embrace Western values.
Yes, I mean, it's not just people like the thugs there the other night. As I think I've told you before, Rita, the former deputy prime minister of Iran, Mohadirani, lives in Leafy Harrow in London. What got regime goons in the UK? Why have we got these people in the country? And again, it goes back to the previous point, Rita. This is what happens if government after government completely loses control of migration and doesn't do anything about it. And I think that these people, the people who are, mourning Raisi, mourning the butcher of Tehran, I don't think they should be in Britain. I don't think they should be there. I don't think there's any reason why the average British person needs to live alongside somebody who's mourning an Islamist goon and monster, and let alone breaking out fights in protest that anyone disliking. I mean, it's preposterous. I've said for years, if you import the world's people, if you import all the world's people, you import all of the world's problems. And once again, we see that. Problems in the Middle East now play out on the streets of London as they do on the streets of Sydney and New York and everywhere else.
And we saw the regime goons there push a woman to the ground and kick her. So the fact that they feel emboldened to do that in the UK says plenty. Now, we are all looking forward to the Biden-Trump presidential debates. You've written in the New York Post that if Trump wants to prevail in these debates, all he has to do is shut up and let Biden speak, or at least try to speak. You wrote that even the best zinger of the line from Trump cannot do more harm to Biden than Biden can do to Biden. He does have a knack of just saying outrageous lies, doesn't he? But will Trump take your advice? Will he be able to control himself?
Well, it's a really key test for Trump. I mean, the last election, you remember, the two debates, the polls all showed really that voters did not like Donald Trump in the first debate, and they liked him slightly more in the second. And the reason is that he just didn't allow Biden to speak in the first debate. He was too aggressive. He just kept interrupting. Even if you support a particular candidate or person, one rule of the television is just, if you keep interrupting and interrupting, everyone thinks, they just get fed up with you. And Donald Trump was a TV star before he was president, and he should know that. He could sort of irritate the viewer. And I think he did that in the first debate last time. And the key thing, as I mentioned in that piece, is that, Biden trips himself up all the time. Just let the man speak. Watch any speech of his, and the minute he has to go off script, such as it is, he loses train of thought. He did it again the other day. He just kind of says, "Oh well, anyway, I was going to say, but well, anyway, I don't need to tell you that." And yet he hasn't said anything yet. And I think that if Trump just lets Biden speak, it will show a lot of viewers and a lot of voters that the commander-in-chief, for whatever his virtues in the past, is rather a sad reflection of that at the moment, and that America needs for the next 4 years a president who is as sprightly and capable as possible. I think that there's only one way to show that. As I say, that's for Donald Trump to shut up. But is that an easy piece of advice for him to take? At a certain mark.
I don't think that. I think you're right there. The temptation would be too big for him, and if he's going to play it smart, he would also draw out the nasty Biden, because one certainly exists, and that could be a powerful thing as well, Douglas, if Trump can goad him into showing that side of himself.
Yes, I mean, Biden showed that side of himself just the other day at the commencement address he gave, in the US, and it was a bitter, unpleasant, ugly message, and also means of communication that Biden did. And he basically told all these black students that the country was against them. It was very sad, actually. But sad that these black students at commencement should get this advice. At the same time, Donald Trump was in New Jersey telling everyone it didn't matter what color they were, what color your skin is, you're all American. But Biden was in very mean speech, and he looked mean doing it, really mean and angry, and he did things like starts to shout. I think that stuff goes across very badly. I mean, everyone says, it's Trump with the female voters who goes over badly, but I think some of that with Biden goes over with female voters and others just not that well.
I think you're 100% right. Actually, let's just have a quick look at what you've just spoken about. Firstly, let's have a look at Trump. When he gave that speech in the Bronx, it was one of a unity and a largely positive message.
Whatever the hell color you are, it doesn't matter. We are all Americans, and we're going to pull together as Americans.
And you contrast that with the speech you mentioned, the one President Biden gave at a historically black college the previous week. Very different.
You missed your high school graduation. You started college just as George Floyd was murdered. And there was a reckoning on race. It's not for the wonder democracy you hear about actually works for you. What is democracy? If black men are being killed in the street, what is democracy? The trail of broken promises still leave black communities behind. What is democracy? You have to be 10 times better than anyone else to get a fair shot.
Douglas, Very different approaches there. Biden's speech seemed to be obsessed about racial division and victimhood, and this message that you need to be, as Black Americans, 10 times better than non-Black Americans to do as well. Who is he speaking to with that kind of rhetoric?
It's very interesting. Biden came in with the idea that he was the great uniter, that he'd be the sort of father or perhaps grandfather figure of the nation. And whenever he does this kind of speech, you say, but look, do you remember what you said you'd be? Do you remember that you said you'd try to unite the nation? What are you doing here? And why are you demotivating Black students and actually lying to them that the country is against them? And that to pick up that phrase, Black men are just being murdered in the streets. I mean, it's true that quite a lot of Black men are murdered in the streets, and they're murdered by other Black men in cities like Chicago, in terrible gun violence that goes on all the time. But Biden wasn't talking about that. He talked about George Floyd, and then went straight on this idea that, I mean, basically that cops and goodness knows who else just kill Black men all the time. That's not true. But it is a sort of rhetoric and ideas that you would imagine you expect to hear from somebody wanting to whip up a certain base on ethnic lines and racial lines. And that's clearly what Biden was doing in that speech. But it's really ugly, and it feels to me at any rate, like a rhetoric of the past in America, describing at the best the past in America.
Now let's talk about Prince Harry and the saga with his visa papers. The court case over the Duke of Sussex's US visa is still going on. We still don't know whether Harry was honest about his past drug use, as revealed in his memoir Spare. The White House has pleaded with the court to keep the documents confidential, Douglas. Lawyers for the Department of Homeland Security argued that releasing the papers would create a stigma. The Heritage Foundation is the one that's filed a Freedom of Information request to access the records related to Harry's March 2020 visa. Douglas, this story does tickle me because Trump has been open to deporting Harry if he is elected, and it's revealed that Harry lied on his official document.
Yes, I know. I'm not wild about this story just because I actually, this is one that makes me feel rather sorry for Prince Harry, and it takes a bit for me to do that. I mean, this is his sort of personal, immigration situation, a story, and
Douglas, he's the one who told us about his drug use in that book. I mean, if he's in this situation, it's completely self-inflicted.
No, I agree with that. I mean, there was no need, first of all, there was no need for him to write the book. And secondly, there certainly wasn't any need for him to write a book in which he said things that would then get him into trouble with immigration authorities in the years immediately ahead. And it's very unwise. But then, at the same time, everything to do with that was unwise. I mean, it's very unwise to spill secrets about your family in public. Not least because you might then discover that your family are wild about speaking to you in private, knowing that it's all going to be made public. I mean, it's a terrible misjudgment by him. I just think I sort of feel vaguely sorry for him about some of this because, he's clearly badly advised. He clearly doesn't think very far ahead for himself. And anyway, I mean, that's the only time you'll get a granting of pity for the spare prince from me.
Well, I think his advisor, his chief advisor, is one Meghan Markle. So if he's getting bad advice, I think we can guess where it's coming from. But I've got to say, I mean, the man's 40 years old. He's not a kid anymore. And these decisions that he's making, I've got to say, I think it would be hilarious if he's deported from the US. And what would the reception be in the UK, presumably, if he goes back there? I want to see that happen. I know it's a little bit evil, but it would tickle me no end. And we need a few laughs in this world with Douglas Murray. Thank you so much for your time this evening. Do appreciate it.
Great pleasure. Thank you.
Recently. 2 minutes.